Hey everybody, it's Boo from Mile Hi Distilling. We're down at our favorite place in the world, Balmer Peak Distillery, and we're going to be working on a gin today. Now gin, this is my personal opinion, I consider it maybe a little bit more advanced of a spirit, and it's not really because of the fermentation. It's more just, not that it's difficult, but you'll probably have to run through your gin multiple times to get the right balance of botanicals. That can be kind of a tricky part, is kind of dialing in the right botanicals to use. So we've tried this before. We didn't have much success. We tried 3 different batches and they all turned out horrible. So we're back again, a little more research under our belt, and we're hoping to do a really nice gin this time. We're just going to keep it basic. We're not going to go out of control. We're just going to do a pretty basic recipe for our gin, which there will be in the description down below, a list of all those materials, and then I'll also be talking about it throughout the run. And with that said, gin is a very versatile spirit. You know, people know gin for kind of that piney aftertaste, but the thing is a gin botanical blend can be done hundreds of different ways. And that's what I like seeing in a lot of craft distilleries now. People are coming out with some really unique gins that are really their own. Over here at Balmer Peak, I think their gin is a little more sweetness forward. They also have my favorite spirit here, their Outback Gin, which is just their gin that they put on oak, and that just well rounds everything. It's a phenomenal gin. You have Downslope Distilling over in Inglewood, Colorado, with over 27 different botanicals in their gin. You get a little bit of everything in that one. And then they also drop a little bit of the lipids from the actual botanicals into their bottle, and it gives their gin a unique color as well. Then of course you have Conflagration Distilling over in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and theirs is more of like a pepper forward gin, so it's kind of got a spice to it. So really, it can be a fun spirit to work with because you can make it your own. More to the point of gin being sort of more of a versatile spirit is your base can really change as well. You know, people make gins out of a wheat or a barley or a rye malt base. Some obviously use GNS or even a sugar. And you know, you can really play with it and make it your own in terms of fermentation as well. What we'll be doing today is a sugar base. And the reason for that is because I prefer that for a gin, because that's a neutral base and I want the botanicals to adhere to much of this gin as possible. So starting neutral is going to be a good step for me, but to each their own. You guys do your own thing. Hopefully this gives you a good guideline for what to do for your gin. And I think we have a lot more to talk about with gin, but we're going to go ahead and get our boiler full of our base, get our heat up, and as the run begins, we'll give you some more tips and tricks. We'll talk a little more gin. Okay, guys, and we have started our run. So one thing is you might not have seen the fermentation for this video. We didn't do a fermentation episode because it's nothing you haven't seen before. Right here in this corner is going to be one of our first ever videos, how to ferment. And that is where we did a sugar wash, which is basically what I'm doing here. In that video, I did white sugar. We were actually doing brown sugar for this recipe because we've learned over the time we've been doing these videos, white sugar is a little more processed, and so you kind of get sort of just a, I call it sweaty type taste with white sugar. Brown sugar should probably go back on that. And we want the cleanest possible product. Now another thing with gin, I'm talking about how it's versatile. Another reason why it is because some people with gin will do stripping runs and then followed by a spirit run, whereas some people just do one single pass, the spirit run, and call that their gin. So I'm always a proponent for stripping runs, we are, but for this run, I'm just curious. I want to play around and see if we can create a good gin first pass. So we'll be doing that first run, and we're just going to be running our reflux chamber here and seeing what we can do first run. Another reason why I'm doing that too is because I don't really know if this botanical blend is going to work. Like I said, I mean, you kind of have to play with things a little bit. This is my first time ever doing this blend. I want to see how it comes out before I waste my time with a spirit run, in my opinion. If I like it in one pass, I'm definitely going to like it in 2. For a gin, you'll need some sort of botanical basket. Here's ours. These come stock on our Pro Series towers. This is just a glass chamber that's going to house our botanicals. You might be asking yourself, you crumbling, bumbling, monkey-brained idiot, why is there nothing in this chamber? I'm going to tell you, good point. But here's the case. We're distilling, but what's coming out? This is going to be 4 shots and heads. Now, we don't really want to waste our botanicals and our taste from those botanicals on our heads, which are going to be pitched anyway. So why even put them in there yet? We're going to run through our heads, and when we get into our hearts, we'll shut our still down, we'll charge our basket full of our botanicals, and then we'll carry over that flavor through our hearts and through our tails. Okay, so our first jar is out. Obviously, we don't want any of this. This is going to be 4 shots here and then a little bit of heads. So what we'll do is we'll collect one more. Probably about halfway through this, we're going to go ahead and do a taste test from there. Remember, we're doing sugar as our base. Sugar has really low methanol content, so we can expect less methanol than we would out of something like a fruit. With that said, just, rough idea. I don't have the numbers in my head, just from past runs. I'm going to say about halfway through that jar, and we should maybe start looking into our heads, our hearts. We might be filling that up. We'll have to see, but we'll keep you guys updated. And when we get there, remember, we'll add our botanicals, and our run will officially begin. Maybe a little under half of this jar, our second jar, and I think we might be in our hearts. We're going to shut down the unit. That's going to allow us to safely put our botanicals in. We don't want to do it mid-run. This is one thing, that's the one drawback you might see. But everything's shut off. Make sure to get your water too, which I forgot. We're going to be using some high temperature tolerant gloves. I don't recommend doing this without something like that to protect yourself, or just let the still fully cool down. It's up to you, but just use precautions when doing this. We don't recommend this. All right. We're going to just pop the very top of our still off. And that's going to leave it so our sight glass is open. And then here come our botanicals. So we're looking at 1 ounce of juniper berries. We're looking at ½ an ounce worth of sweet orange peel. We have 1/10 of an ounce of coriander seed and 1/10 of an ounce worth of licorice root. So that's the recipe we're going on. We're going to go ahead and start turning back up, get our water back on. Now you might notice, we'll do a close-up of this in just a sec, but this chamber isn't very full. And the reason for that is, remember, you can always add flavor in. You can't really take it out once it's there. So we're going to start small to make sure we don't overdo anything, which has happened the last 3 times we've tried gin. And we're going to go from there. Now this is just a testing recipe. We're just trying to find that right blend. And this is going to give us a good indication of where we need to go from here. So we are sitting at about 183 or so, which again, we wanted that. You can do a stripping run for a gin, and it's recommended, but we wanted to see what we can do first pass through. So we're at the right proof to determine that. I think our proof is going to be pure enough. But, if our botanicals aren't there, then it doesn't really matter what our proof is at, right? So as we fill up our first jar of hearts, like I told you, start small. And we're seeing that now. Even this small amount we did, we're carrying over a little too much of something. Now, this is where we kind of have to play around. I think maybe ratios are slightly off with one ingredient. It doesn't mean that we use too much as a whole. Maybe we just have too much of one ingredient kind of overpowering the rest. So now that we have a good test to go off of, we're going to stop our still again. I think we're going to add a little bit more orange peel. I think we're going to see how that is. We're going to be adding another ½ an ounce worth of sweet orange peel, which is going to bring our total to 1 ounce of orange peel per this recipe. Like I said, down below, you're going to see a finalized list of all the ingredients. So our initial thoughts for this 4th jar, after we've added more of the orange, is now we're definitely looking at more of a citrus-forward gin. It's definitely carried over a lot more. What we saw in our first jar of hearts was it started out sort of with that orange. Then as it progressed throughout this jar, it got a little more washed out and turned into, to me, juniper-y more than anything, but we got differing opinions on that. Regardless, we're thinking the same thing is going to happen to this jar. It's starting very orangey, not very, maybe just definitely more on the orange side, but not over extreme. However, it might wash out as this jar goes. So we'll just have to see. While we're waiting, let's explain a little bit more about gins. Now, as far as I understand it, there are basically three main types of gins. You're probably familiar with an Olde Tom type gin. It's also known as bathtub gin. We have our London Dry Gin, a very popular gin. And then kind of what I think is kind of the grandfather of gin, and that's Juniper. My understanding of those is each one is going to have a different flavor profile. Remember, they're made through different botanicals, and that's their main change. That's what, how you create so many different types of gins is playing with the botanicals. So London Dry, as far as I understand it, is more juniper forward. You're definitely going to get a lot more juniper than the other two you would. Olde Tom, as far as I understand it, is more sweet, on the sweeter side of things. And then Juniper is supposed to be kind of malty, grain type flavor coming over. So each gin has a little bit something going for it. Remember, especially in the craft scene now with gins, people take that to all sorts of extremes. You're going to get lemon forward gins, you're going to get pepper, you're going to get many different types of things that can really change your gin. So it's fun to play around with, and we're hoping what we like our gin to be is more on that citrus side. I like a sweet gin more than anything, but to each their own. We're getting differing opinions because people like different things. That's what happens with a gin. It's sort of like a beer. Everyone kind of has their taste that they like. So just so you know, with our gin so far, it looks like it's going to be a citrus forward gin. So as we head into our 5th jar of the good stuff, let's take another proof reading because this is right around where our tail should be. Well, I mean, jar number 4, which I just took, is like 186, so we're not quite there yet, but we'll see if jar 5 is any different. Remember, as a reminder on this channel, when you start dropping in proof, that's a good sign you are heading into your tails. That's one indication. Keep in mind, you saw our blend. Get creative with yours, okay? We have Licorice Root, you have Angelica Root. You could use those with or as a replacement for the root we used. We can be looking at lemons or different sorts of citrusy flavors. People use rose hips and other types of floral botanicals to do something with their gin that way. There's obviously elderberries. We can even look at something like cardamom. Star anise would give sort of like a licorice-y type finish. We can use lemongrass, hibiscus, grapefruit. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? You can even get creative with something like a clove. I'd use a really small amount on some of those ingredients, which again, follow what we're doing here, I'd recommend. If you're trying to develop a gin recipe, start small. You can always increase. You can't decrease once it's in there. So, play around. We've talked about on this channel before in the past about doing like a 3-stage infusion method. And that'd be basically, let's say we're working with peaches. We could have peaches directly in our fermenter as we're fermenting. Then when we go to distill, we can have some peaches in this basket. And then after we distill, we can take our jar and put fresh peaches in there. And that's a 3-stage flavoring process. With gins, not really something I'd fully recommend. Again, a little bit can go a long way. So we're starting with just one out of those 3 methods and moving from there. But something you can do in the future is if your gin is coming out sort of how you want it in your gin basket, but you want a little extra something, or you just want to experiment, you can try what's called the soaking method for a gin. And that's the same as post-infusion. So out of this jar, we could add our botanical blend, or maybe we want more juniper, just a tiny bit more. We can add just a little bit of juniper in this jar to see how it would carry over. It wouldn't be an exact match going that method as opposed to this, but it would help you maybe kind of determine along the way what you're trying to do as an upgrade to your botanical blend. One thing that some distilleries do, namely the one I am thinking of is Downslope Distilling. Like I told you in the beginning, they add a little bit of the lipids and the acids from their botanical basket and drop it with a ball valve right into their jar, their bottle. So their jar, even though gins are typically clear, their gin has a really unique yellowish tint. Sometimes you see orange as well. So consider that. That'll get you more of those flavors out. And if you don't mind that color being in your jar, could be a good route to go just for a little added oomph. So halfway through jar number 5, and I think the inclination was correct. I think we might be in tails. Our flavor has changed, which is another indication of the tails. We aren't getting, I guess, as much, I guess, well-roundedness than we were in some of these other jars. This could be a good opportunity. What Austin had said over here at Bombay Peak is these botanicals that we have in here are probably getting a little bit spent. So this could be a good opportunity during your run to change them out. But Austin brought up another good point. Remember, we're going to be blending these all together. So we're going to take all our hearts and then all our tails and kind of blend them to get the right balance. And sometimes those tails can bring over a little something that maybe the hearts was missing and vice versa. So I think we won't do that. We'll let them chill as they are and we'll do our blending and sort of just dial everything in. We're at 180 proof as well. I can't imagine when we go down to 80, it's going to have as much of a extremity to it and intensity to it. So there's a lot of work to be done post distillation to sort of balance everything out. We're just going to let it ride, but we are in our tails, probably looking maybe about 3 jars of tails, and we will go from there. So we'll give an update when we can. Jar 3 of tails coming out the still. I think now is a perfect time to once again thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it all. We have had a lot of fun with this recipe. I'm really curious what you guys are doing. If you guys have some gin recipes you want to share, you just moved my camera, you stupid whore. I'm really curious what you guys are doing. So if you guys have any gin recipes you want to share, please leave it down in the comments. I'd really like to see just sort of the different variations from ours, what you guys are doing and what's working for you. Let me know also, what kind of gin you prefer. Do you like citrus forward gins, pepper? Let me know. I want to hear a little bit more about you guys. For now, we take a shot together, folks. Grab some gin if you have some. If you don't, just grab something. Take a shot with me, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Ooh, yeah, that's coming through really nice. Also, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and all our social media. You can find all those links down below in the description. Thank you. Well, guys, I don't really know what's going on here. We are about to head into a jar number 11 of our hearts/tails, and we're still at 180 proof. We are just not dropping. So rather than ride this out, get a little bit late, and I think we've had pretty good success with the recipe, I think we'll probably cut it. We wanted to thank you guys once again for watching, and any notes you'd like to share on your gin, please let us know. Let us know how you liked the video as well, and hope you guys can take this and do your own gin with this as a guide. So thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.